Okay, 6:04, ready to start the council meeting. We shall start with a roll call.
Councilmember Lee.
Yes.
And Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Douglas.
Present.
Councilmember Colfax.
Here.
Councilmember McColley. Here. And Mayor Burris.
Present.
Okay. Next item, public comment on the closed session. It's difficult to have a comment on closed session, but it's part of protocol. Is there anybody that has a comment on the unknown subject? No. Seeing no comment, we close public comment on the closed session. To the closed session, we close the session, we go in closed session, and I think it should be relatively short. Is that correct?
I suspect so, Mr. Mayor.
It should be relatively short, so I think we have to ask everybody to vacate, but come back, it won't be long.
The viewers online will be gathering momentarily.
Yeah.
Looks like we do have a raised hand from Jane Gallagher on Zoom. Did you want to take that really fast?
You want to read the?
We have a raised hand on Zoom from Jane Gallagher. Did you want to take that really fast? Jane, is this pertaining to the closed session?
I wanted to know the status on the Snapdragon provision. The chat was not open.
That's going to be on closed session, so they'll give an update when they reconvene. Okay.
But I can give a brief update, Mr. Mayor. It's fairly simple.
We're not on closed session yet. We're going to end this meeting and then we'll start the confidential Zoom.
Okay, so
Did you want to give an update for the commenter?
Yeah, Mick, if you could please give a brief public update, that would be appreciated.
Okay, let me go get everyone then. Stand by just one.
okay. It's a little awkward doing this, but.
Ms. Mayor and the attorney are the only people you can understand.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I can hear Kim Douglas, but it doesn't sound like others in the room necessarily have their microphones on when they're speaking. So if we could do a sound check when we get a chance, that would be great.
Members of the audience have re-entered the chambers.
Okay, so Mr. Mayor, I can give a brief update that's suitable for public consumption. On July 6th, just a few days ago, there was a hearing in Placer County Superior Court on a preliminary injunction that was granted in its entirety. And so Snapdragon and the building owners are now enjoined. That means they are prevented from operating without obtaining a business license, paying business license taxes, allowing an inspection by the county, and displaying the proper county placard. We did receive a communication from the lawyer for the building owner, and he wanted to know what the city's position is and whether the city is interested in discussing any settlement possibilities. And that's going to be the subject of our closed session discussion. So that's not a subject for public, that's not suitable for public consumption, but it is I just thought I'd let people know that that's where we are. We're going to talk about whether some type of resolution of this case is appropriate. That's my update, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. With that, I think we have to ask the public to leave again. Is that correct? Close this segment of close.
Yes, it's appropriate now to close the public portion of the meeting and move into closed session.
Yes, we're going to have closed session. The report from closed session is that it will be made public at the next meeting. It became more involved than we thought. That's why it took longer. But the proceeds will be made available in the next meeting.
And for tonight, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, there is no reportable action.
And there's no reportable action at closed session. It's time for the Pledge of Allegiance. I would like to ask the new Councilman, Carolyn McCauley, to lead us in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, let's see. We already had a roll call, didn't we? Well, we have roll call on the agenda, but do we do that again for open session?
I haven't been doing it.
Yes, you do.
Councilmember Lohman,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Douglas,
Present.
Councilmember Holberg,
Here.
Councilmember McCauley. Here. And Mayor Burris.
Here.
Okay, everybody's present. Approval of the agenda order. Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry, they all
Yeah,
have to be
actually
calls
have to.
tonight.
Yeah. Well, since Mayor Burris is attending remotely, all votes have to be taken via roll call.
Shall we have a roll call, the approval of the agenda?
Councilmember
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Douglas,
Aye.
Councilmember Holberg.
Aye.
Councilmember McCauley.
Aye.
And Mayor Burris.
Aye.
Okay, it's approved. Consent calendar. Does anybody want to pull anything for the discussion from the consent calendar? Anybody from the public want to pull anything? No. Consent calendar is approved.
Or we have to.
So you need a motion and a second and a vote.
Move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Aye.
Councilmember Holberg,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Douglas,
Right.
Councilmember McCauley.
Aye.
And Mayor Burris.
It is approved. Moving to item 4, agency reports. Start with the sheriff's office.
Good afternoon, everybody. Sergeant Kevin Griffiths, your Colfax Station Commander. Been a busy couple of weeks for us over at the sheriff's office. I was gone all weekend. I was down in Atascadero. They had a missing 5-year-old that went missing in the storms in January, and they sent about 500 individuals down to look for him in the river bottom. Unfortunately, by the end of the weekend, we had no signs, had not found him. Very unfortunate for that family. Very good for a lot of our SAR members. We took a team of 20 down to help out with that search. So if you're interested in giving back to your community and you want to join search and rescue, we are definitely looking for more people. You guys have all paid attention, I'm sure, to Facebook, the news, some of the troubles we had over the last couple of weeks. I can assure you that this is not something that we are proud of, that we are actively looking at making the sheriff's office better. The sheriff said it his best. We will hold our own people as accountable as anybody else out there. That is something we strive to. We do not like it. It's not something we would ever condone, and we will definitely hold people accountable. I can't speak to the escape. I wasn't in town, but I'm very happy that we got him back into custody where he belongs. And that investigation is ongoing as to how that happened, and I don't have any news to that. So I'm sorry, I don't have any answers to that. The sheriff's office will be transparent with all of that, and we'll constantly strive to do our job to be better. I know that they're going to be revisiting a lot of the policies, the procedures, making sure that we keep with the trends and see where things might have gone awry so that we don't have those things happen again in the future. As far as the city of Colfax, we're doing very well. The deputies are working hard every day. There was a reported death along the tracks back on July 2nd. Investigations came out this week after an autopsy. I got the news today on my way here that that was not a death that any of us have to worry about. It was not criminal in nature. It was somebody deciding that was his last day. So that has been cleared up. I know it was close to town, but we took care of that and we brought in a lot of resources to make sure we figured out exactly what that was for the community. So with that, that's going to be the end of my report unless anybody has any questions.
Any questions?
Okay, actually, I'm going to step back. We just had the July 3rd. Sorry, got busy last week. We did end up taking 3 individuals into custody because of fights, intoxication, both drug and alcohol. But the rest of July 3rd, we're having a meeting next Thursday with the city to kind of go over what we can do to make it better for next year. But I think it was well attended and a lot of people had a good time. So thank you for supporting that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is CHP.
Good evening, Council. Officer Jason Lyman with Gold Run CHP. We had obviously the maximum enforcement period we covered that on our department from June 30th through July 4th. And during that time, our office, we had 11 different crashes that we handled and one that was DUI related. We also issued 117 citations during that time with varying all kinds of different things, but majority of them were dealing with speeding. Hopefully everything else went fairly smoothly, and obviously traffic was heavy, but no major catastrophes that happened, no fatalities or anything like that. So we were pretty pleased that things went as smoothly as they did, and we were able to keep things rolling. Anybody have any questions?
I have one question regarding that truck fire just below Colfax
Today?
No, I didn't know there was one today, but the one that happened a couple of days ago.
Okay.
It's just a concern that I have that one of those trucks one of these days is going to set the whole mountain on fire. And I'm just wondering if either of them were brake fires.
I'm not 100% on the one that you're talking about. I've been on vacation and I just came back today. Was my first day back. So I'm not completely familiar with that one. But I know like we had one today just above Colfax here by just the side of the trestle. That's what it was a brake fire. And I know that the fire department and Caltrans and us, we've been looking at stuff. I'm trying to get more trees and stuff cleared off the highway, and there is stuff in that's in the works, but it's taking a little while for that all to come together. Thank you.
And next agency report is from CAL FIRE.
Yeah, good evening, City Council, City Manager. I'll direct that answer or that question. If you don't mind, I'll just go straight into the point and hopefully clarify some of those things. In regards to the brake fires and a lot of these semi trucks, the majority of the fires that we do get on I-80, especially those westbound with the brake checks and a few things like that going downhill, are caused by that. I would say probably on the upper ends of 90 to 95% of those are started that way. I know working with CHP, there's a few things in works with mitigating some of the fuels on that, including with Caltrans. and then ensuring that some of those are taken care of. We do have that it's peak staffing right now. We do have 2 engines at Alta and 2 engines at Colfax. So our response to a lot of these fires and our stations, quite honestly, positioned where they are able to get there fairly quick. So we're very familiar with the road and we'll keep on doing that. Going into more of the report I did have, clearly it's getting hotter and drier. I gave a report probably about a month and a half ago on some of where our fuels were and kind of that I guess outlook for this fire season. And I put it at 44 days behind what our normal schedule is for when we really start burning. And that still does apply, although that 44 days is cutting it, is shortening up as we speak. So right now, a lot of the fires, and obviously with the increased temperatures and a lot of those RHs dropping, we are getting a lot of those fires caused by in that grass and somewhat in the brush right now. But for the most part, it's staying there where our 10 hours and maybe a few of but the thicker the brush and the fuel, the longer it's going to take to dry. So some of those are still wet higher up, but we are starting to transition into that more critical. Not there quite yet, but I don't think it's going to be long where we start doing that. With that, Cal Fire in Placer County is adapting some of that, and that's mainly in that peak staffing that I mentioned earlier, where we have all our resources completely staffed. That's going to include for the Cal Fire side, 22 engines, 7 crews, 3 dozers, for our aircraft, 2 fixed wing, and then this year we have again, like we did last year, 2 helicopters on CWN, which is called When Need. One is out of Auburn and the other one is out of Grass Valley. And then with our counterparts with the U.S. Forest Service, we have some options up in Truckee also. So in this area, we do have several helicopters and air resources that are readily available to hopefully extinguish these fires, exactly what you talk about. And I would say with the I-80 corridor and the fires, we're aware of that being one of the highest potentials and hazards in this area. Moving to some of the statistics, if you guys don't mind taking a look up at the board. I'll go through these fairly quickly, but there's been obviously a significant uptick in the vegetation fires, and you'll see that probably throughout. But a lot of those starts this last month were due to escape control burns, and just I guess some of the public being unaware of some of the escapes and some of the rules. Since then, we did suspend burning, and that was on the 26th, the same time we went peak staffing. So if you can't see it, we did have 22 vegetations, and this is out of Colfax Station 30, 3 structure fires, 6 vehicle fires, 5 traffic collisions, and several medical aids for a total of 105 calls. For Colfax, so the specific this area, 2 vegetation fires, 2 structure fires, 5 vehicle accidents, 42 medical aids for a total of 64 calls. With that, on that bottom right-hand side, I put for the response for our company 36, and it was 14 responses at a 22% response, which is by far the highest in the county, and that's just by 2 volunteers, and they are a huge asset to us. One of those calls was a rescue that we had down Yankee Gym, where there was 2 people couldn't get up the side. They were trapped there with some heat exhaustion going on, and one of our rescues with one of our volunteers showed up, used the equipment, and definitely helped out in those situations. So our volunteers, though it looks like a low number, they're doing it voluntarily wise, and that's a pretty big number, and we appreciate their help. Moving on to some of the volunteers, the RT 130, which is some of the basic annual training. Both of our volunteers are up to speed on that. And then we did have a 3rd volunteer, which was Lauren, and she moved out of state. So we will be just with both of the volunteers now. The 3rd of July event, again, that speaking the same thing as Sergeant Griffiths talked about, went well. We had for the parade, 1 antique, 5 engines, 1 water tender, 1 truck, and a dozer that was able to join the parade. For us, we love doing it and seeing the kids and things like that. We did have 4 transports, medical transports, one of which was at the result of at the end of the day there, but we were able to do that. And prior to, if you take a look at the picture on your left-hand side, that's one of our Placer County trucks that we ended up getting from Station 180. Bringing it up there, there was the flag that was stuck on the Eagle, and we were able to dislodge that again with, if you see the car on the bottom right, with SO's help, and got that flag right before the event started. So that was a good thing. And there were several people in the public that were able to see that, including one of your councilmen. Other than that, just a quick safety message. Obviously, this is where we're at in the fire season as we're just ramping up. Just kind of want to remember on the Cal Fire side, the ready, set, go. Just make sure that in the event we do have something, that everything is prepared for some of these evacuations with the coordination with SO and Cal Fire. I will break for any questions.
Just want to say thanks again for bringing the truck up early to get the flag down. It was stuck up there for a little over a week, so big appreciate, much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you.
Help.
Any questions from the public? Oh, we do have one.
They have a break check, like you can pop this.
They do, but I can have CHP answer that one for you.
Yes, they did. It is.
If you could just.
Right. It was right just west of Nyack.
Is it mandatory?
Yes, it is mandatory, and there's numerous signs, not only just regular black and white signs, but there's message board signs and stuff all the way from clear up by Kingvale that start coming down the hill that advise everybody that it is mandatory to stop at that location. And we do enforce that very strictly. We are out writing citations for that very regularly. There's just a lot of truck traffic that's coming through that either do not stop, or even the ones that do stop, they still tend to get going down the hill from there way too fast. And then, they get the brakes heated up, and then they just aren't able to get it slowed down in a safe manner without catching things on fire.
Okay, thank you. Okay, what's next? Nonprofits, yes. Any nonprofits in the audience? Should be one. Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem Douglas, if Green Machine is not here this evening, they did mention that they're planning to give their report at the next meeting when they're able to provide the full details from the final numbers after the 3rd of July.
We'll have to wait. Thank you. We'll move on to item 7, public comment. Oh, I missed the presentation from mosquito vector. Megan, correct?
Yes.
And we changed the agenda.
Like, wait, don't forget about me. Good evening, council. My name is Megan Milano. I'm the Public Information Officer from Placer Mosquito and Vector Control District. I'm here to give you our annual update and some news about West Nile virus and invasive Aedes in the county. So I'm going to move on to our next slide. I do this every year, but a reminder about who we are. We're a special district. We're located in Roseville. We have a substation in Truckee that services the eastern part of the county. We have a 7-member board of trustees with representatives from each of the different cities, the town of Loomis, and then someone who represents Placer County at large. I am joined today here by our citizen representative, Will Stockwin, who's been on our board for quite a long time, and I really appreciate him being here. We have 25 full-time staff members, and then seasonally we hire seasonal employees and interns. So we have a nice big full staff. Our mission is to effectively and efficiently manage the risk from vectors and vector-borne diseases to make sure Placer County has a strong public health foundation and a good quality of life for residents who live here, work here, and for people who play in Placer County. This is a picture of 25 staff members, which, if you know, this is a very hard thing to do, but there we all are, everyone's smiling. And all these people serve different purposes at our district. So a little bit about what we do, which I know some of you know, but we monitor and manage vectors and vector-borne diseases in the county. We also communicate that risk to the public, like presentations like this that I give. We use integrated vector management tools for every decision we make when it comes to protecting public health in the county. This is a map of our service area, which is all of the county. So on the western side, West Placer, we deal with mosquitoes and West Nile virus. Mid Placer, that's kind of where Colfax falls. We're still dealing with mosquitoes, but we're seeing more tick activity, and we're also dealing with Lyme disease. And then in East Placer, we're seeing more yellow jacket activity. And we assist the California Department of Public Health with any rodent issues that they may have in that area. And then I'll talk about this a little bit later in my presentation, but we have been dealing with snowmelt mosquitoes in the Eastern Placer area. And I'll talk a little bit about the record rainfall and how that's impacting mosquito activity. So next slide. We've gotten this question a ton this year. We obviously dealt with record rainfall. We've been seeing those impacts. And what we like to say at our district is if there's more water, there's most likely going to be more mosquitoes. So as of right now, we haven't truly seen that impact the West Nile virus yet, but we anticipate come August, we are going to start seeing more West Nile virus down in the lower areas of West Placer. You know, we don't see West Nile virus up here in Colfax as often, but I was just informed earlier today that we did have a West Nile virus positive mosquito sample in Newcastle. So that's not unusual. It's happened before, but it hasn't been for the past. So that's something we're definitely paying attention to. So this is a graph of all the public service requests we received in June of 2023. So we're looking at about 129 public service requests that were submitted. Through our website or through calling our district, we allow the public to submit problem reports for some of those items listed there. Mosquitoes, standing water, yellow jackets, dead birds, and swimming pools. And through our website or Department of Public Health's website, that's westnile.ca.gov, or by calling the phone number to report a dead bird. And that allows the state to keep track of all the dead birds that are being reported statewide. And so that's still the process for submitting dead birds. Swimming pools can be submitted anonymously, and then standing water, that high number, 40 different service requests for standing water, most likely are people asking for mosquito fish for their ponds. So in Colfax, we get a lot of those calls. There's a lot of ponds in Colfax, and people can actually call in, submit their pond, and our technicians will come to a property inspection and make sure that mosquito fish are a good solution for their pond. And mosquito fish will eat the mosquito larvae off the top of the pond. So it's a really effective biological solution. My next slide has a little bit more information about that program. A lot of people ask, is it free? Yes, it's free. We actually rear the mosquito fish at our district headquarters. Again, it's a great solution for standing water, and our technicians get in touch as soon as they can with the person who submits the problem report so that they can come out and address that problem on their property. So West Nile virus, we are seeing West Nile virus starting to spread throughout the county, especially down in the West Roseville and West Placer area. So we did detect West Nile virus for the first time this season on June 21st in West Park. That's where it's been detected the past few years. The West Park neighborhood of Roseville butts right up to a bunch of rice fields. And a lot of times that's where we see that first West Nile virus positive mosquito. I do have updated numbers on what we're seeing in the county. So as of today, just a few hours ago, we did have 37 positive mosquito samples and 8 positive dead birds. Again, not totally unusual for this time of year, but moving into August, we're anticipating those numbers are going to be a lot higher. The numbers for the state are probably a little bit outdated now, but there were 65 positive dead birds in California and 283 positive mosquito samples as of last Friday. We are making control treatments. We are implementing those as we speak. There is an aerial adulticide treatment going on today in the western part of the county. Anyone who's interested in receiving those treatment notifications can subscribe on our website, and they get emailed to you where the treatments are being made, what time they're being made, and why they're being made. So what for? So that treatment tonight is for high West Nile virus positive mosquitoes in the area of West Placer. And then again, a reminder of how to protect yourself from West Nile virus. Obviously, it's spreading throughout the county. The best things you can do is use an EPA registered repellent. So that's a repellent that includes ingredients like DEET, picaridin, IR 3535, or oil of lemon eucalyptus. Those ingredients are registered by the EPA as the best ingredients to prevent mosquito bites. That's super important. You also want to get rid of any standing water on your property. As you know, that's where mosquitoes like to breed. And then again, questions, concerns, give us a call at our district. We're always happy to respond to resident concerns. And you could skip to the next one too. The other big update from our district are invasive Aedes. We've been talking about these for quite a few years. These mosquitoes, specifically Aedes aegypti mosquitoes, are invasive mosquitoes. They're not from this area. They've been spreading throughout California since 2013. We did detect them in Placer County, again, in a Roseville area in 2019. We didn't find them in 2020 and 2021, which was during the pandemic. So we kind of wonder if they were sheltering in place while we were. But come 2021, we did find them, or 2022, we found them again last year. These mosquitoes are a concern because they have the capability of transmitting diseases like Zika, dengue, chikungunya, and yellow fever. We do not have those diseases circulating in our county right now. But let's say if someone were to travel outside of our country, come back with one of those diseases, now this mosquito has the ability to transmit that disease locally. That's not happening yet. We're doing everything we can to eradicate this mosquitoes, but now that we've found multiple life stages of that mosquitoes, they are well established in this area of Roseville. So again, we're doing everything we can to try to address this problem. We're making treatments. There'll be a treatment Friday morning to, it's called a Walls treatment, but it's a larvicide treatment followed by an adulticide treatment to try to knock these mosquitoes down. Like with West Nile virus with invasive Aedes, you're going to take the same precautions, but standing water is very important for these species. They like to hide in cryptic sources, which makes them hard to control and hard to manage. So getting rid of all standing water, even that little bit of water that pools up in a sprinkler head, these mosquitoes can develop in. So super important to protect yourself from mosquitoes this summer. Lastly, we have gotten a ton of media coverage about snowmelt mosquitoes. So Colfax and then in higher elevations up in the Sierras, we're seeing that late snowmelt happening. So normally snowmelt mosquitoes have kind of cycled through by this time in the summer, but we have seen this big hatching of these mosquitoes around the July 4th holiday. So a KCRA 3 reporter happened to be out hiking and experienced these mosquitoes and their aggressive biters up in the Sierras and is like, what's going on? I've never experienced this before. And it's because of that late snowmelt happening. So these are snowmelt mosquitoes. This isn't uncommon, but at this time of year, it would be unusual for someone who hikes at this time of year to experience these mosquitoes. They don't transmit disease, but they are really aggressive biters. So this is just a little snapshot of some of the media coverage we've received. Our district manager has been doing a ton of interviews to try to talk to people about what's going on with these mosquitoes, why they haven't experienced them before. So again, that's just a quick annual update of what's going on at our district. We're doing everything we can to protect Placer County residents from getting mosquito-borne diseases. And that concludes my presentation. If there are any questions.
Any questions?
I have one. Maybe you said this, but I didn't hear it and I couldn't read it from here. The 80s mosquito in particular, what risk comes from them? Are there any particular diseases?
Yeah, so they have the capability of transmitting diseases like Zika, dengue, chikungunya, and yellow fever. But because we don't have those diseases circulating right now, that risk is very, very low. However, if someone were to travel and bring back one of those diseases to an area where these mosquitoes have infestated that neighborhood, then that risk becomes a lot higher.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I had an easy question. In Florida and Louisiana, they're having pilot studies where they're taking mosquitoes and genetically engineering them
Yes.
so they can have offspring. So I know we don't have a serious mosquito problem here, but I'm wondering if we should maybe start a pilot study here, to prevent having that kind of a problem. Is there any discussion on that?
Yeah, great question. I think the issue that we have with invasive mosquitoes right now, we're not ready for a program like that. And there are other not genetically modified approaches like Wolbachia, a natural occurring bacteria that could sterilize the male mosquito that maybe we would look into before we use something like genetically modified mosquitoes to combat these invasive Aedes. But yes, it's something that we are keeping track of what's going on in different areas, seeing what studies are being done, because if something were to get to extreme levels, we want to do what we can to protect public health. As of right now, we're not considering that type of program, but in the future, if there were a problem, we potentially could.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the public? No? Anybody online? No.
Nothing online.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, what are we on now? Now we get to the public comment. Anybody from the public?
We do have there was a speaker card turned in for Dr. Curtis Fox.
Good to see you all.
We're on.
Council. And
Mike Lucan.
I don't think we know each other.
I'm sorry,
City manager.
sir, is this in regards to item 9A?
It is.
Okay, so
Too soon?
yes, you are. So no worries.
Hello, Mayor. Also, thank you for the opportunity to talk tonight. Two things briefly I'll try to get through. I don't know, we've talked about this till I'm blue in the face, but I just wanted to show you the last few meetings I've explained that there's a delivery service now that's just crushing my business, and a lot of it's not legally done. But there are certain sites you can go to, and I brought some examples. I hope you can hear me okay. What I have here, I think that these have a little complex. Some people selling my product, but the company were able to do it probably around 30 bucks. So this is flour for kid milk, re-roll.
Hey, Jim, could you try to get a microphone from the clerk if you're not able to stand in front of the podium? I'm sorry, none of us at home are able to hear you.
Okay, I was just explaining about the products that we ordered that were delivered to Colfax. And I'm going to give the list. It says the address right on here. Here's Hillcrest Drive, $62. And they're killing my business. And this isn't legal. It's not giving anything to Colfax. But there should be. What I'm suggesting, hopefully you can do, is have Kyle, SCI, go into the metric system. We can check and see how many deliveries were made to Colfax. And they just started this on April 1st, I believe, where they're keeping track of everything that goes. So there are, I don't know how many companies, but they're out of San Diego, San Francisco, different counties, Yuba City, and they're coming here to deliver into Colfax without giving us any money and putting out of business. And that's kind of what I want to go over tonight. Anyway, I just wanted to show you the proof with your own eyes, what's going on, instead of just me up here blabbing. Okay, the second thing I'd like to go over tonight is a lot more serious to me. First of all, I hate chemical drugs. I don't like prescription drugs, where they come from. And especially that, I don't know how much fentanyl is coming across that border now. It's invading our country, it's killing our people, and it's just a rotten thing to do. So what I've done tonight is brought some examples here of two things. One of them we have that is a test for fentanyl. And we have another store in town, it's next door to the cannabis store, that we're giving this away for free to people. Please come to this little tea shop. This doesn't have anything to do with next door. But this test for fentanyl. There's a swab in here you can take, and you can test the water bottle and your arm and anything that you're getting. You wouldn't suggest using this to test my products because they're already tested. I'm going to leave some of these here, for people to take home. This is a test for opiates. Any opiate will show up. I don't know what color. Leave some of these here. Next thing I have here, and I know this is tough to talk about, you guys, and we're running out of time. But what I have here, again, for free, we're passing these out. We're going to try to save some people's lives. This is what's called Narcan. And I hope you don't mind me giving the public Narcan. There's no problem with the sheriff having that. Is there? I don't know what this Narcan is. Okay, good. Well, we're dealing with a company right now that supplies methadone for heroin addicts, and a lot of folks are getting hooked on Oxycontin and stuff. So what this is, and again, it's all free. Come in the store, anybody that wants to. This is called Narcan, and what it is, I'm going to open it just to show you. But it's a little device that if somebody is overdosing on opiates, you take this little thing and put it up their nose and squeeze it. This is the only chance they're going to have. CPR is not going to save these people. This is called Narcan. There's 2 of these in each box. And I suggest, you might not think that this is going on in your home or your neighbor's home, but instead of not being prepared, please come in and get this for free. The general public, you come and leave these here. At least you guys take these with you, and hopefully we don't have to wait until something happens, okay? These I have to take back with you. This is just an idea of what they're delivering in Colfax. Legal company, no prescription bag, thank you. And like I said, we have right now. And this front of your house. I believe these will test these here too.
Thanks, Jim.
Anyway, thank you for the opportunity to bring that in and talk about it.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Tim Dion, and thank you for letting me talk. I first want to say that there are several legal deliveries that do go on. One of them is a unionized business called Ease. They deliver in hundreds of cities in California, every city in Placer County except for Colfax, they claim, but I do believe they probably do deliver into Colfax also. The next item is this is from Attorney General. It says This is one of the largest residential forfeitures actions in American history. In early April, local and federal authorities descended upon 74 marijuana grow houses in Sacramento area. They say were underwritten by Chinese organized crime. They filed court paperwork to seize the properties worth millions of dollars. Federal officials allege the legal recreational marijuana states like California, Colorado, and Washington, where enforcement of growing regulations is hit or miss, have been providing cover for transnational criminal organizations willing to invest big money to buy or rent property to achieve bigger returns. Chinese, Cuban, and Mexican drug rings have purchased or rented hundreds of homes and used human trafficking to bring inexperienced growers to the United States and tend them. Federal and local officials say the suspects are targeting states that have already legalized marijuana in an attempt to shroud their operations in our legal environment here and then take the marijuana outside of the state. Well, the other thing they do is they don't take it out of the state. They sell it here. And the way they do it is through rental properties. And so in the town of Loomis, you get a business license, itinerant merchant permit, which allows you to sell products, and there's nobody to check what you're selling, but you can sell products, deliver products, have people come to your house, buy products. In Lincoln, it's called a home occupation clearance form, which allows you to sell corporations, I mean members, to sell products, and there's no way for the police to even ever police that. Too many businesses selling whatever they want. In Auburn, it's a short-term rental application, and if you go through the codes and you go through the state law, the corporations are allowed to operate in here, and you'll never know they're licensed because they're not licensed in your city. They're just here. And so the reason they're able to do that is because now it's kind of tracked because the inventory delivery ledger that they have to keep is required by state law. So now you should get reports on what's delivered into the city and be able to treat those companies as a normal business that would have to pay half of that money that they collect in taxes to the city that it's delivered to, and half the money in the city that they're licensed in. That's how most businesses are run, and most things work when there's multi-jurisdictional taxing or whatever. The last thing I want to get to is this company that produces NABA1. It's a cannabis extract, and it's chemically derived. They have finally made the IV injection. They have a way to administer it through IV injection. It's not in the United States yet, but the company is, because they deliver products to us. Nabis, it's called Nabis, but it used to be NABA1. It's the same company, and they are the ones. I've given them almost $200,000 since 2020 to support their research and drug IV injections. So the next thing that you'll be seeing in a few years coming up the road is people ODing on synthetic cannabis. And this is one of the things that legalization has brought to, the state and the country. The company is out of Ukraine, of all places, and that's all. So the delivery of cannabis cannot be regulated, and I wouldn't expect the police to regulate it themselves. There's no way you can, it's like trying to regulate illegal drug dealers, but they're acting as they're licensed. And it's really a lot of process for the police to go through, check the track and trace, check their credentials, see if they're, in metric, and it's kind of an unfavorable position. So thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Any other public comment?
Can I ask a couple of questions? Is that allowed?
Sure.
What year was that Chinese case?
It was a while ago.
Okay, like almost 10 years ago, I believe. 7 to 10 years ago,
Not sure.
but nothing recent before that, right? Because I was trying to figure out, I remember that case from a long time ago. And my other question was, you were talking about these short-term rentals and stuff.
Yeah.
Do you have anything that shows any kind of evidence that is happening?
I can go rent.
No, I know what you could do, but is there any evidence that
I'm not
shows?
presenting.
Okay.
The sheriff's office.
I was hoping that there was something there that we.
No, I'm not gonna derive that information. I mean, I could show you, I could maybe teach you or show you how to figure it out, but I'm not gonna publicly state that.
We did have a raised hand on Zoom from Jane Gallagher. Are you still with us? She might have disconnected. No other comments online.
Any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment and move on to city council members' reports, committee reports. Shall we start with Sean?
Been a slow couple of weeks, but I just want to say that the 3rd of July, I thought went off amazingly, and great job with the Green Machine. I was out there the whole day, and everything was very well put together and well operated, and the fireworks were great. That's all I had.
Okay, Councilman Carolyn, are you too new?
I'm too new at this point. Haven't gotten to
Councilman Larry?
go yet.
Nothing to report. Nothing to report. I didn't have any committee reports, but I met with the owners of the 7-acre plot where they built the Arco Arena. And I've been working with them sort of behind the scenes. They want to get some parking spaces going for the restaurant. And that's been going on sort of behind the scenes for many, many months. And it looks like they finally have resolved that. And they're going to be able to get the parking spots so that they can build that restaurant. So that's something positive. I need those parking spots.
You can help me push it, having them put a road through instead of a walking trail too.
Well, yeah, we definitely need that trail.
Need the road.
Yeah. And does the city manager have a report?
Yes, sir. Just a few items. Oh, yes.
And
Sorry, Trent, do you have a report?
I'm sorry, we didn't explain earlier that you were using your just cause exemption to participate in this meeting this evening.
Yes, I'm ill this evening, so I'm unable to attend in person. I don't have anything to report though. I'm gonna go ahead and defer to Mike for the comments that we had discussed.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir, and council. Just a few good things to happy things to report. One is we received a final budget approval letter from the California Water Board on the first part, I guess. I don't want to call it phase because it's for phases 2 and 3 of our sewer project. So that's step 1. We were kind of withholding the notice to proceed for McGuire and Hester on the I&I project pending that. So that's very good news that we got that yesterday. We still need another one of these to be able to not worry about the buffer funds that the council set aside. That's related to the cost increases of the 2 projects. So we're still waiting on that. And in fact, tomorrow, Jim Fletter, our consultant with Wood Rogers, and I are meeting with the water board to discuss that secondary letter. We're hopeful to get that very soon. Or we're hoping to get that very soon. I wouldn't say hopeful, we're hoping to get that very soon. We're also meeting with water board staff to discuss the first parts of the feasibility study for the Shady Glen project. So the very important meetings that we have tomorrow with the water board. We do actually have we have a third meeting with the water board coming up, which is related to a release that we had in March by our wastewater treatment plant. It was a and I'm just learning this, so excuse me, it was a non-effluent release, which meant that they anticipated a high water point in one of the ponds, and they were able to release non-effluent to basically give space for incoming rainfall. When that happens, we have to sit down with the water board and talk about our permits that we have in place and see if there's any adjustments that need to be made. So we have another meeting coming up. Devin, our plant operator, and I are meeting with our consultant team and the water board on that issue. Another bit of good news that the mayor and I received yesterday, and she had talked about some potential council training with our two new members on the council that is normally available through the League of California Cities and other entities, but it's very expensive and may not be exactly what the city of Colfax need. So we've been meeting with William Jessup University to custom tailor a program, and we're hoping and would like to get some feedback from the council. We're hoping to look at that the week of August 14th. So it's kind of an off week to have a special meeting related to that. So Marguerite and I will work with you on exact dates, but if that doesn't work at all because of other commitments, we would look at another time. But tentatively, just in general, that week of the second week in August, if we could look at that. So I don't know if any comments from the council, if there's any reasons why we couldn't have something that week.
Works great. My husband will be on vacation.
Okay. Well, the other I'm sorry. Any all good? All good. The other really good news about that is William Jessup University has graciously offered to donate that training at no cost to the city as part of their community outreach. So it is not going to, other than maybe some printing costs for some materials, they are going to do that at no cost. And they have some former city council members and former city attorneys that'll work with our staff, both myself and Mick and other staff as needed to put on a real good team training effort for the council. We're focusing in on kind of the decision-making process in general, how that typically works with councils. And also the Brown Act, and also budget. If there's some other topics that you would like us to cover, you can certainly contact me separately, and we'll be happy to add those. As the sergeant from the Sheriff's Department mentioned, we are having a staff debrief next Thursday on the July 3rd event. We did receive one comment from a resident about some after parties that were happening after the July 3rd event, and some negative issues related to access and parking. So, but that's the only complaint that we've received as a city, that the city staff have received. But we wanted to kind of gather everybody together at a staff level and see if there's anything that we could improve upon for next year's event. Sorry, I have a lot of quick things here tonight. One is we have been working to try to get cable access added in addition to Facebook. And we thought that was going to be a very, very simple process, but as Astound came out and looked at the system, it's not so simple. So it's going to take a little bit longer, but we're working hard to get that implemented so people can access the council meetings through cable. Another technology item, and I know some of the council members have experienced this, is we were having a pretty severe problem with emailing from the city's email system to Gmail addresses. Our Vision Quest, our IT provider, is working very hard to try to find a solution to this. It actually is directly involving Google and Microsoft in that effort. And I'm actually reaching out to some other IT folks that I have had contact with at UC Davis to potentially help us resolve this. You know, we're now in week 3, and it's a rather annoying and impactful thing on business, because we can't email anybody with a Gmail address from our city emails, and you know, you've experienced that as well. So we are working on that. We will find a solution. Last couple things is we are meeting tomorrow with Rainbow Music on the lease of the rail car on the by the depot to look at a potential short. Well, the council granted a short-term extension so that they can work diligently towards replacing the windows for their business. We may need to come back to you later in the month for another short-term extension. We're simply just kind of running out of time because of, you know, 4th of July and people being gone and that kind of thing. And then lastly, as coming on board as your new interim city manager, I am having some interim meetings and the intro meetings in the next a couple of weeks. Just wanted to mention I'm meeting with Cal Fire next week. The sheriff's department and I are trying to set up an introductory meeting. It's simply, these meetings are simply for me to learn, you know, more about, you know, their operations. And then also the chamber CEO, Loriana Chechi, and I are trying to set up a regular meeting that her and Wes had to coordinate between the chamber and the city. And that's a lot. And that's all I have to report tonight.
Sure. Question?
I had somebody reach out saying that they had some comments on Facebook that didn't get captured for public comment. Do you mind if we go back to that? So I
Go back.
had one for Cal Fire. And then one for mosquito vector control. See, I got was the sound check done where the uncontrolled burners cited. Mick, let's see. No answers yet, Jen. We're working on it. Gotcha. Watch the video on Facebook on pending.
Do you see yourself?
Okay. I like it.
Just don't look.
Yeah, okay.
Are we waiting for somebody to reconnect?
Well, Marguerite, can I just show you my phone and you can see them off there? Will that work? Either way.
Okay, I apologize with that. I'll have to check the settings on Facebook. Jane Gallagher is reporting. This was related to the mosquito presentation regarding picking up the dead birds or do they need to be delivered? And regards to the crosswalk, I believe that item is going to be in 9A.
The first question she had was if the burn pile people were cited or not. And I know Cal Fire is still here, so I don't know if they can answer that.
Were the uncontrolled burners cited?
Yeah.
I think that was related to Chief Loveless.
So council members, sounds like the question is escape burn piles, are those residents cited for that mistake? So there's several different things that we can do here. The biggest picture of this thing, and I do want to reiterate this, is it is a good thing to burn the piles to minimize the size and to protect it from the, when the summer does come and they're able to burn. So that's why we're big advocates of these burn piles. We teach classes with a couple of our partners on how to do this and reduce that fuel for when the summer does come. For the ones that do it and it escapes on them for whatever the reason may be, if it's just a learning opportunity, we'll definitely do that. We do have paperwork and documentation that we can do, that we can continue that process and make the notification. So if this does keep on happening, we can take different avenues for it. If it goes into not just their property, but other properties, then it is on our prevention side, DA, lawyers, and they kind of deal with that. And I wouldn't have those particular answers. And most of those are confidential. So hopefully that answered the question for what they're looking for.
Thank you.
At the end of the
For the mosquito vector control questions, since they're gone, I think she just specified that all they're doing is just taking reports of the birds, not having you pick them up or touch them or test.
If we're done with that, we'll go on to line A, Grass Valley Street pedestrian crossing, no parking, a discussion about signage, striping, or parking. So this is a discussion issue. And sounds like Councilman Hilberg has
Well, I have one comment I would make. Just looking at the map, it's probably the most illogical crossing that I've ever seen. And it's two white stripes that go diagonally across the street. And I would ask the question, why is it there at all? And it seems like a really easy solution would be to just sandblast it. Unless it's official. I can't imagine it gets used that often. And I'm just wondering if that option was considered, just to do away with the crossing altogether.
Mayor Pro Tem Douglas, staff has a staff report for this item, if you'd like us to present it.
Present it, please.
Okay, thank you. And I'll start, and then I'll turn it over to Carl Moore, our city engineer, to present this item. So we received a complaint from a concerned citizen. A citizen has school-age children that walk to school and was concerned with a crosswalk on Grass Valley Street, what's called a mid-block crossing. We only have 3 of those in the city. And Carl can talk about the specific locations, but mid-block crossings are traditionally not pursued by cities because they're not a natural place for a crosswalk. They're at an unprotected area, and again, as I said, just not at a natural place where people expect a crossing to be. And so many communities resist installing them, but at times they are necessary. We don't really have, this one has been in place for a very long time and may not have been installed in the best location, but it is what it is. And so what happens when the city receives a complaint of this nature, and we ask our professional engineering staff to take a look at it. They go out in the field and analyze, the issues related to site distance and a number of other factors, and then they make a recommendation on how to move forward. We haven't run into this very often in Colfax, and so we wanted to bring the item to to the council for discussion purposes only. We're not asking for any action tonight. But it does involve a number of factors, not only the safety issue. And, you know, once a safety issue is brought to the attention to a city, typically it has to act on that item because it has the potential to increase liability to the city if nothing is done to it. So we have to act and investigate that. But in this case, there are options, and it is going to have, you know, unintended impacts upon the neighborhood, on local businesses in the area. I know Dr. Fox would like to talk about that here tonight. And there may be other ways to address it, and the councilman has identified a one method by which to work on this. There's certainly, with all these solutions, there's upsides and downsides, and Carl will talk a little bit about some of those, which include street lights, which include a flashing light, and as the councilman talked about, removing or relocating that. But we wanted to bring it to you for discussion, and then we can come back at a future point in time and request council's to move forward on any one of these particular solutions. So with that, I'll turn it over to Carl, and he can outline his investigation of this issue and some potential solutions and some of the issues. He'll also talk about the outreach that he's done with property owners and people in the area, and how we got to here, where we're at here tonight. So Carl, please proceed.
Mayor Barres and members of the council. So we received a complaint about this intersection. I think it was the end of last summer. Staff started looking into potential remedies, which included signage. First, we were looking at just replacing signage or adding additional signage. But one of the things in civil engineering is you look at stopping sight distance, and that involves perception reaction time and then stopping of a vehicle. And if a vehicle is parked right now, there's 2 parking spaces directly in front of the crosswalk on the westbound traffic. So if a vehicle is parked there and somebody smaller than the height of that vehicle steps out, a vehicle that's westbound on Grass Valley Street would not see that person until they stepped out. And so that creates a hazard for the pedestrian and motorists. If they overreact, they could go into oncoming traffic and have a head-on collision, or they can they might hit the pedestrian. So as far as outreach, once I did a little research, I prepared these exhibits and I hand delivered them to the residents that are directly impacted around this location that would be impacted by the loss of 2 parking stalls. I hand delivered that, and we also mailed them to the owners of the properties, including Dr. Fox's. And that was on April 18th. We still was doing additional research, and once we determined we wanted to bring this to council for discussion on July 6th, I did the same thing, went out to the residents, hand delivered them the letters, didn't do the exhibits again, but I included a copy of the previous letter, and we also mailed those again to the owners of the residents and the businesses in this area that would be impacted, which includes 48, 52, 54, 101, 121 Grass Valley Street, and 10 Culver Street, which is the sheriff's office. Other crossings that we have in the city that are similar with mid-block is a church at the post office. It's very similar, except on the other side of the post office, you have a 4-foot bike lane that is an additional buffer between the vehicular traffic and the crosswalk, and any pedestrians in the crosswalk. But on the post office side, it's a very similar situation. And then the other one is South Auburn and McDonald's. That one's a little bit more protected, a little bit right near the McDonald's entrance. Not quite the same, not quite the hazard. But as far as comparing and looking at this intersection and other intersections, the one at the post office and this one are pretty similar. So then I had the first exhibit up there, and that's the existing conditions. And then if you look at the next two, you can look at the final one, the third one. And that shows you what we'd be doing as far as replacing the existing signage, adding new signage, where we'd have the no parking zone, taking out 2 stalls. And since funding is definitely tight with the city and we have a lot of different projects going on, right now, the immediate lowest cost way to address this issue would be this, where we're just placing signage and just painting curbs. And as far as addressing this with a diagonal crossing and making it a perpendicular crossing, that would be ideal, but that involves adding 2 ADA ramps, making sure it's all ADA compliant and doing a lot more work where we don't have the funding available for that right now. To address the question about why this is even here, there is no crossing at Rising Sun. So anybody coming out of on the north side of Grass Valley, wanting to cross the street legally to use a crosswalk would have to go all the way down to Main, cross and come all the way back up. And I'm not an expert at ADA compliance, but ADA compliance typically requires a shorter path of travel. So requiring somebody to go down that far to cross and come all the way back is not something that's desirable. So another option would be to remove that crosswalk, as has been suggested, but then we'll have more illegal crossings, just people crossing wherever they want. To my knowledge, this is used for school crossing. It is, we do have the residents up Neyland and they do come down Neyland, cross over, use that crosswalk and continue on up to the schools. So without that, then we're asking them to go down to Main, cross and go up towards the schools. And we know what the kids are going to be doing. So you have any other items you'd like to share before we?
Oh, thank you, Carl.
Okay.
The council may have some questions of you though.
I got a question for you.
Sure.
Karen, what's the feasibility of moving that down to Neyland? Like if we move it down to that intersection, and can we get away with that without the ADA compliance? I know we haven't quite fixed up that curb yet. I don't think right there at the corner in Neyland. I think we did most of the sidewalk, but not that corner.
You're changing the exact same situation, but flipping it. You still have a mid-block crossing now.
Yeah, but it's a little further down and you don't have the same traffic blockage if you got Neyland right there for that extra.
But yeah, you could have a crossing on Neyland, which is a corner crossing, which is more expected for pedestrian crossing. But now you got a mid-block crossing on the south side. You'd still have the same situation with sight distance. You're still going to lose 2 stalls.
Okay.
So if I don't mind, Mayor Pro Tem, I had some input on this. I was just going to ask Carl, can you speak to the feasibility of us using the rectangular rapid flashing beacons? We know we could get solar panel ones and potentially have an install cost of about 10 grand for, you know, both beacons on either side. Would that eliminate the need to reduce parking?
No, because it still comes down to sight distance. So if somebody's, your flashing warning is good for drivers to know that somebody might step out, but if they can't see that somebody until they're in front of their vehicle, there's still the hazard.
So even if there's a delay on the flashing lights indicating the vehicles to stop before the pedestrian proceeds, we still have that issue?
Are you talking like a activated switch where a pedestrian would hit a switch and the light would turn on?
Yes.
Or a continuously flashing beacon?
No, I'm talking about a pedestrian activated.
Yeah, I did reach out to our consultant firm about, potential cost for something like this. They did mention a cost installed of between $30,000 and $40,000. So it's not something quick to install. It is a definite solution. And if we did that, I think we'd have to go beyond just installing the actuator buttons and the lighting. We'd have to also install the 2 ramps and maybe chase some ADA compliance.
And my curiosity is, for what reason would we have to do the ADA compliance?
Well, now you're changing, you're modifying. So right now the plan was, let's revise the signage and redo the striping, but we're not impacting, we're not changing the current configuration. Right now it's a step off curb. There's no ADA ramps. So once you start touching it and modifying it, now you need to make it compliant.
So as far as cost of going to ADA compliance, it's basing on the entire scope of what we're looking at here and the traffic flow for that particular area. I'm wondering if maybe moving it to Neeland and reversing the gap that we're talking about to the other side of the street might actually be the better solution, because if we moved it over to Neeland and then put the crossing on the far side closer to Main Street, that's still going to accommodate the crossing for the many, many families that just moved into Shadowwood. But it will also provide a traffic break for traffic attempting to turn left onto Neeland and move out of the way of the other traffic, which happens every morning and becomes a clog. And if we're going to be forced to do ADA compliance either way, that sounds like the ideal location to do it. I'm adamantly against removing parking.
Yeah, or what does it look like if we move it up to where Brown Lane and Rising Sun are? So if we actually made it so it crossed right there at Brown Lane, just put in a crosswalk there. It's a shorter stretch, but there's no established sidewalk on the other side there. So you basically have to come out and then cross over the two crossings.
And that's where the purpose of this discussion is, to look at other alternatives,
Right.
Making it a three-way stop, signalizing. There's so many different
Right.
avenues that you can look at.
But that'll start the ADA compliance, basically, if we're moving it and installing a new crosswalk.
Right.
We got to
Yes.
go full ADA and full.
And then you chase it. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
I'd definitely love to see some cost models of these different options at the next opportunity it's presented for council. But I think I'm pretty firmly in camp, let's not eliminate parking, because we already have a very restrictive parking scheme downtown. And I know that the impact to the families who do live on that road would be significant, let alone the impact too on, Dr. Fox's office and all that. So I'd love to see any possible solution that involves not eliminating parking.
And I'll definitely take some more time. I am leaving on vacation starting tomorrow and through the following week. And looking at the different alternatives, and then the cost for those alternatives definitely takes a little time. I will say that most of these options include relocating a mid-block crossing, which has the same impacts with sight distance, which really requires removing two stalls for that much of a distance without installing a stop controlled situation.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Kim. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, we can come back to the council, Madam Mayor, and the rest of the council with, a matrix, if you will, with kind of the pros and cons and costs of each one of these alternatives. I think we could probably do some low cost speaking to maybe some of our partners in other communities, that have run into this without going to the expense of, hiring an ADA consultant or something like that. We can probably glean that experience from, maybe some of our larger cities in the county to get that, and then bring that information back to the council.
Yeah, that would be much appreciated. And two, I just wanted to mention, if we're able to find a way to wrap installing, pedestrian activated light system, especially a solar one, so we don't have to install a power source, so that we have one of those downtown. I'm sure if we could wrap it into another project, we might be able to make it more cost effective and, get that price down there to a more reasonable level. I know in the last few years, I've done a few projects that involved these, and the price point was closer to that 10, 15K mark. And so I'd be really comfortable if we could get it to there. But I think there'd be a big benefit in general to having one of those, because we do tend to have events that happen at night that involve children. We are not a town that has any stoplights. And so having at least one crossing with a pedestrian activated light switch I think might be a great thing for, you know, the safety of the kids, especially around Halloween.
I agree.
Oh, I was just gonna say, it is an option, is it not, to put up, you know, lighted signs that it's coming, flashing signs, but not actually take out the parking spots? I mean, we can consider that, yes, no. Can you redo the striping and add, you know, extra signage, but leave the parking spots where they are?
Well, maybe I'll comment about that. Yes, the council has within its purview to do that. It's and I don't know if Mick, you're still on here, but you know, that starts to involve degrees of liability. And that's, you know, kind of a judgment call that we would have to make, you know, if we don't solve the sight distance issue, but we put a warning. Is that something that will help us with future potential legal action? I don't know, Mick, if you want to chime in on that at all.
Yes, I am still here. And once you have notice of a dangerous condition, your liability increases. If there is a dangerous condition of public property you're not aware of, you typically are not liable. But once you become aware of it, you have an affirmative obligation to start doing something about it.
And Carl, could sight distance be worked with as long as the signal is capable of giving an indication to wait and then when to walk, like many signals do in larger cities?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Sight distance. Could the sight distance be remedied with the signal being able to tell the pedestrian when to start walking versus when to wait?
I think that would depend on what we put in. If we put in a flashing red, so it would stop vehicles and then allow the pedestrian to walk, then that would be a yes. But if it's a flashing yellow, that's still a cautionary light that allows vehicles to drive through the intersection.
Okay. So it sounds like we have some options we can explore. They might be more expensive, but they're on the table for discussion.
Yes.
One option that we would not recommend, and most communities are considering taking them out now, is the lights installed within the pavement. Most communities, you know, went to a lot of trouble and a huge expense to install that lighting in the pavement, and there's been a lot of talk that is not getting any better protection than a flashing light. So we would urge you to not go in that direction and not look at that alternative just because it's of the huge cost and it's not really been that effective.
That's good to know. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
No, but I think we do have some public comment and some comment online. So.
Public comment? You cross over there instead of where you're crossing.
Go over here. City Council, City Manager, thank you for listening to me. Anyway, it's a complex problem that the city faces. I understand that. And I think that number one, safety has to come first. I make that crossing 8 times a week or more. It is really dangerous because if I'm next to the police, the sheriff's substation, I have to wait for cars to go by and by and by. And finally, one will stop. Well, I'll get about the third halfway through when the car coming up the hill will just go right past me. So the problem with a driver's vision, as I think it is that they're looking up the hill beyond this position. So that crosswalk needs a stop sign of sort. Now, if I'm on the office side and I'm going across, the same problem arises. I can wait until a car stops for me going up the hill, but I do not expect the car coming down the hill to stop, even though I'm in the crosswalk and there's a car stopped for me. I mean, this is a regular deal. You get part way and you just wait. goes car, then I go on my way. But that won't necessarily happen for child. And so a flashing red light, some stop sign there, I think is critical from my standpoint. Drivers may not like it, but if they have to stop there, at least they're stopped and they have a better chance to see somebody, because it's like you're invisible when they're traveling, and you know, whether they're going 25 miles an hour is pretty fast when in that short distance. So I appreciate you guys going to the trouble to save the parking lots, you know, parking spaces that we have, and all the neighbors are concerned with that because we're impacted. But again, it comes down to a safety issue, and a mom with kids or kids by themselves. A mom with kids is one thing if she's got control, or if we all have control of our kids, but once in a while they get loose. And if they dart across there, then you've got trouble. Yeah. And then, you know, lives are all changed when that sort of thing, the driver's life has changed, the family's life has changed. So anyway, that's my point. I would like some sort of a stop sign that will stop people so that they have to wait a second. They'll see a little better and it will be a safer crosswalk.
I have a quick question for you. Since your parking spaces are going to be affected, how do you feel about that?
Oh, I don't like it, of course, you know, because we're impacted as it is. So I have 4 staff or so. And then most of my patient population is over 70 now. So, I mean, I've been here for 44 years, so they weren't always in their 70s or 80s. You know, I've known them a long, long time. And so they all people age 80 and over all have walking problems. They can't go as fast. And that's universal when you look at aging. A good portion of people from 70, 75 walk well, but there's a number who don't. After you get over age 75, then it becomes more of a problem. And that's well studied. So it's best if I have parking places where they're closer, and so that they can take their time crossing, you know, going across for somebody who is impaired with their ability to put one step in front of the other. Those sorts of times that they take are like 4 times what it takes a young person to cross. So a flashing light that would alert someone that you have people crossing, I think would be better than a stop sign. I was first for a stop sign, but if there was a flashing light there, a flashing red, then they'd stop. Side note on McDonald's, I walk down a couple times a week. I go down to have coffee at TJ's. That's dicey. On the various crosswalks that we have, but crossing in front of McDonald's is just your open game. So, I think that's something that needs to be addressed, because that's the only way to get over to the businesses on the other side. And I'm done. Thank you very much for listening to me, and I appreciate all your hard work. I really do.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else?
We do have Sarah Perez, who had her hand raised. Sarah?
Hello.
We can hear
you. Okay. Oh, so I live right here next to Dr. Fox, and of course, eliminating my spot, so it would be harder for me because I have little kids, so it would affect me, you know, whether I'm going to the grocery store or whatever I'm doing on a daily to get to and from, because that's my only parking spot in front of my residence. So I'm completely with Dr. Fox as far as flashing anything and not removing our parking stalls, because like I said, that would affect me big time too, because I have 2 little guys. So having something flashing like right there would be, I think, ideal for our right there here.
Thank you. We have our Zoom here.
Hello?
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Mary George. I'm the homeowner at 52 Grass Valley. And I completely agree with Sarah. Parking's really crucial downtown. My neighbor, Kat Raymond, and I don't have any alley access to the back of our homes. So the only parking spaces we actually have are in the front of our houses on Grass Valley Street. So I appreciate your problem solving, and also taking into consideration how tight parking is downtown. I do worry a little bit about anything flashing or bright lights or any of that stuff in front of my home. It's my sanctuary. I love it. I realize I live on a busy street, but at night it's so quiet. And I already have several street lights, and the back of the sheriff's office has a light that shines right in my bedroom. I have some other things going on that I try to mitigate, but I just wanted to say, just as a very selfish and personal note, that it is really nice to be able to, just have some quiet and some darkness at night, even in downtown. But I fully understand that safety comes first, and I respect the decisions that you're going to make as you look at all the solutions, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Here are the calls.
It looks like we have a couple comments on Facebook. I'm having a hard time reading all the comments, but I did look at one, which is from Helen Hilberg, and she states it would be better if children from Leland only have Ben Taylor to cross on way to school. More crossing raises risk. And Councilman, were you able to see any further comments?
Yeah, Jane Gallagher had a couple of comments she made on here. One of them said, without the Culver and West Grass Valley a crosswalk, you cannot cross at school time. She said maybe better to sandblast. Neyland is on a more level area, perhaps safer. And her last one was, if driver cannot see a flashing light, the problem of stop signs at Canyon and 174 is replicated. And that was it.
Okay, so I think that's all of the online comments.
That's the end of the comments. Any last comments from the public or council?
I guess just to give a little direction, if we could see the options that we have, the additional options that we have, what we can do without eliminating the parking spaces downtown, that'd be great. I don't know if anybody else wants to see anything else. That and moving it up to Neyland, what the cost of that would be. That'd be great.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'd like to see what the options look like either at Neyland or at Rising Sun, and specifically without eliminating parking. So ideally, I would want to see proposals that include pedestrian activated flashing red lights. That's really what I'm looking to see.
Yeah.
That way they're not continuous yellows that are flashing all the time and disturbing residents.
Definitely. Nothing continuously flashing.
And my comments would be, I would hate to see any parking places go. I think probably most important is that the diagonal should go. It should be perpendicular to the street, and it should also be sidewalk to sidewalk, which I believe means Neyland, or potentially Rising Sun as well.
You can keep talking. Sorry about that.
Just one last thought again, perpendicular.
Well, if there's no more comments, I guess Carl's got to get back to work.
Yes, I think we have enough to get us going. To
After
bring
his
something back.
vacation.
Yeah.
Enjoy your vacation.
So on vacation, enjoy that first.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If that's the end, we will move on to discussion whether we want to cancel the first meeting in August.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem and members of council, just a couple of things related to this as it relates to some other council direction. And so back on June 14th, we received council direction to agendize a discussion of the potential amendment to the cannabis ordinance. And so staff is prepared to bring that back to the council on the 26th, and Mick Cabral and I will be working on that item to bring that to you on the 26th for a good discussion. But that relates to the August 9th meeting. And the reason we're asking for the August 9th meeting cancellation is typically the council does cancel a meeting in the summer, and you typically ask us staff's recommendation based upon workload and council items, what we have. And so it appears that we don't really have any items for the 9th, but because the second part of the council's request on June 14th related to bringing back a draft ordinance on August 9th or the next meeting, staff would recommend that we would continue to cancel the August 9th meeting and actually bring back a draft ordinance, if that's the direction of the council, on the 26th of July, to bring that back on August 23rd, the next meeting. And the reason being is it's going to take a little bit to draft an ordinance and have something ready. And 2 weeks is very quick to have something as complex as this back to you by the 9th. So our recommendation would be to, stay your requested course of discussing the amendments to the cannabis ordinance on July 26th, canceling August 9th, and then bringing back a draft ordinance to you on tentatively bringing, pending your action on the 26th, bringing that back on August 23rd.
Okay. Any discussion on canceling August?
Cancel.
Do I hear a motion? Do we need a roll call on that, or?
Yes, please.
Well, Mike Shaky said yes, roll call.
Yes, you need a roll call.
Councilmember Lemon.
Second, and I.
Okay. And who was the second motion?
The motions to cancel the August 9th council meeting. Kim made that, so I second.
Mayor Pro Tem Douglas.
Aye.
Councilmember Hilbert.
Aye.
Councilmember McCoy. Aye. And Mayor Burns.
Aye.
Okay, it passes.
One follow-up item is there's a lot of material, historical material on the cannabis ordinance item, and with 2 new council members, we were going to provide a lot of historic material to our 2 newest council members. Would any of the remaining council members like that as well? We'll still have a pretty thick staff report on the 26th, but it's quite voluminous, the historic information, and we're happy to provide that to you. But if you don't need it, would save a few trees. So.
Well, and I do have all of that information stored electronically, so I can email it as well.
Yeah, we could do it electronically too.
Email is good.
Yeah,
terribly.
Did we take public comment on this item?
Oh, on the cancellation of the meeting? No.
Mayor Pro Tem, do you want to open it for any public comment just to be safe?
Comment about us canceling our August 9th meeting. Public comment?
Thanks again, jumping on. What takes so long? Do we have to rewrite the entire ordinance? what we need to do, and I've mentioned this before for about a year, we got the word medical. One ordinance says cannabis. That's all that needs to happen. We can take out that word and keep the ordinance as it is. Instead of going back again, probably opening it up to the world and have everybody come in again. That's just didn't work before and work again. I would just like to have you guys make it simple and not have to rewrite the whole ordinance. Thanks.
Thank you, Jim. Trust me, I'm sure everybody would love to keep it simple, but for the sake of transparency, we got to open it up to everybody every time.
Well, if there's no other comments, we will move to number 10, good of the order. Everything good to say, Sean?
Welcome again to our new council members. I hope you enjoyed your first meeting. I've got nothing else. Thank you.
We had a wonderful 3rd of July. The fireworks were the best I've ever seen. Still would like to see them replaced with drones, but I'll bring that up again 6 months from now. If they don't want.
Only as long as they blow up.
They blow. Any other comments?
I just comment to say that it's all different when we're up here with all this furniture between us. Instead of being out there, just comes with a whole new set of awareness. And then secondly, as I expressed when I was chosen, I'm a very strong believer in downtown. And that is going to be my MO, is to try to make downtown a magnet. And one of the things I want to do is by starting out by reaching to the Chamber of Commerce. And I'll just give one example. When one gets off the freeway at the roundabout, they're looking left to see where the traffic is coming from. And the only sign that tells people about downtown is on the right. And so they never see it. And to connect to what Dr. Fox said, I have walked that stretch a number of times myself. That crosswalk is very dangerous because of exactly what I said. People are coming off the freeway. They have to look to the left to see what traffic is on the roundabout. And they don't look to the right. And that's exactly where the crosswalk is. And I think it's an accident waiting to happen.
That's it.
I was just going to comment that the social reaction to 3rd of July was awesome. And there was also many, many comments that had been made on Facebook in regards to the 4th and the fact that people were out there cleaning up and the city staff did a great job cleaning up after such a huge event. And it was cleaned up very quickly. And I saw many, many comments about it. So kudos to them who went out there and cleaned it all up afterwards.
The green machine.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll tack on to that. So the Green Machine runs a setup crew, a cleanup crew, and a working crew for the 3rd of July. And the people who were signed up for shifts ended up working a good 16-hour plus day on the 3rd, and then at least another 4+ hours on the 4th during cleanup. So I don't think that there's any way we could possibly truly express enough gratitude to those volunteers. But I really wish there was, because the amount of work they do, it's hard to get people to be willing to do that much for their community. So they're very appreciated. Speaking of community service, the library, I'm going to go ahead and pull up my notes here. The library will be open during the next heat wave here, especially for Saturday and Sunday, from 10 to 7 on Saturday and 1 to 7 on Sunday. This should help with the heat events. So if anybody has, limited cooling options and needs a cool place to, make sure that you're safe over this extremely hot weekend, the library is a resource. And I think that's all I had for good of the order.
Trinity, the library is a cool place. Everybody should visit weekly. have a roll call whether we want to close this council meeting. Do I hear a motion to close the council meeting? A second? All in favor?
Hi.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.